The sky above New Eden Colony turned from blue to orange as the sun began to set. Lissa Hartman stood on her front porch, checking her watch. Her twins, Danny and Kate, should have been home from school an hour ago. They never stayed out this late without calling. Lisa walked back inside and picked up her comm device. No messages. She tried calling the twins again, but got no answer. A cold feeling settled in her stomach. Something was wrong. She left her house and walked quickly toward the school. The streets of the colony were mostly empty. New Eden was a small settlement on the edge of human space, home to just under 5,000 people. Everyone knew everyone here. "Have you seen Danny and Kate?" Lissa asked Mrs. Rivera, who was watering plants outside her house. "Not since school let out," Mrs. Rivera said. "But I saw something strange earlier. A Zaraxian ship flying low over the school area. Not one of their usual patrol ships. This one was smaller." Lisa's heart beat faster. The Zaraxians, rulers of the Galactic Empire, rarely visited human colonies. The peace treaty signed 7,000 years ago kept the powerful aliens at a distance, even though they technically controlled all human worlds. When Lisa reached the school, she found a small crowd of worried parents. Governor Alan Preston was there, his face grim. "What's happening?" Lissa demanded. "Where are my children?" Preston pulled her aside, speaking quietly. "We're handling the situation, Lisa. Please go home and wait for." "Where are my children?" Lisa repeated, louder this time. The governor sighed. 12 children went missing after school. We have video evidence that they were taken aboard a Zaraxian science vessel. We're in contact with the Imperial authorities now. Lisa felt her legs go weak. Taken? Why would they take our children? We don't know yet. The Zaraxians aren't providing any information. They're claiming it's a routine scientific mission authorized under Section 47 of the old treaty. Routine. Lisa's voice cracked. Taking our children is routine. Other parents had heard them now. Voices rose in anger and fear. "My boy was taken too," shouted Frank Miller, a farmer whose son was in the same class as Lisa's twins. "Why aren't we calling Earth?" asked another parent. Governor Preston raised his hands. "Please, everyone stay calm. We can't risk antagonizing the Zaraxians. They have technologies we can't hope to match. We need to work through proper diplomatic channels." Lisa stepped away from the crowd, her mind racing. The Zaraxians had always seemed so distant, so disinterested in humans. In 7,000 years, they had rarely interfered with human affairs. Why start now? Why take children? That night, while the colony's leadership debated what to do, Lisa broke into the communications center. The lone technician on duty was Ben Frazier, an old friend. "Lisa, you can't be in here," Ben said, standing nervously. "Ben, I need 5 minutes on a direct line to Earth Central Command. Preston is trying to handle this locally, but the Zaraxians took my babies." Ben hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. That's all I can give you." Lisa sat at the console and sent a priority message directly to Earth, bypassing the usual colonial channels. She attached the security footage showing the children being lifted into the Zaraxian ship by a beam of purple light. She included all the information she had gathered, including the ship's identification markings. In the capital city on Earth, Admiral John Reeves was preparing to leave his office when the emergency transmission arrived. He watched the footage and read Lisa's desperate message. Then he picked up his secure line and called the President. "Madam President, we have a situation. The Zaraxians have abducted human children from New Eden Colony. Across the galaxy, on the Imperial capital world, Emperor Zorkelax reviewed the report from the science vessel. "Excellent," he said to Chief Scientist Kel Taros. "The specimens were collected without incident." "Yes, Your Majesty." The humans barely reacted. As predicted, they seem afraid to challenge us. The Emperor smiled. 7,000 years of peace has made them docile. They remember their place in our galaxy. How wrong he was. 3 days after the children went missing, Earth sent its best diplomat to the Zyraxian capital. Jack Morrison had spent 30 years dealing with alien species, but never in a situation this tense. The last major conflict with the Zyraxians had been 7,000 years ago, ending with humanity accepting a peace treaty that many felt was unfair. The shuttle landed on a huge platform that floated above the Zyraxian capital city. Jack looked out at the massive structures that rose like crystal mountains, gleaming in the light of two suns. The Zyraxian Empire controlled thousands of worlds and millions of species. Humans were just one of many races under their rule. Two tall Zyraxian guards met him at the landing pad. Their skin was pale blue, and they stood nearly 8 feet tall. They wore the silver armor of the Imperial Guard and carried energy staffs that could turn a human to ash in seconds. "Follow," one of them said in simple English. The Zyraxians rarely bothered to learn human languages well. They believed their own language was superior. Jack was led to the High Council chamber, a huge room with walls made of some strange material that shifted colors constantly. The Supreme Counselor Vexthor sat on a raised platform, surrounded by 12 other council members. None of them stood when Jack entered. "You are the human speaker," Vexthor said. It wasn't a question. Jack bowed slightly. "I am Jack Morrison, senior diplomat of Earth Central Command. I come seeking the return of 12 human children taken from New Eden Colony 3 days ago." Vexthor's large eyes blinked slowly. No children were taken. The Empire conducted a standard collection of biological samples as permitted under Treaty Section 47. Jack kept his face calm even as anger rose inside him. Those weren't samples. They were children. Human children with families who missed them. "The distinction is meaningless," said another council member. "All lesser species provide biological material for Imperial research. This has been the way for thousands of years." Jack pulled out a small device and projected a video into the air. It showed the children being lifted into the Zyraxian ship. "These are not samples. These are people. Their names are Danny and Kate Hartman, Sam Miller, Joey Rodriguez." "Names do not matter," Vexthor interrupted. "The collection was legal and necessary. The study requires living specimens to be effective." "What study?" Jack asked. "What are you doing with our children?" A Zyraxian in a white robe stepped forward. This was Kelteros, the chief Imperial scientist. "Humans have a unique genetic structure," Kelteros said. "Your species adapts to new environments faster than any other known race. Your children show these traits even more strongly. We seek to understand this ability and use it to improve our own species." Jack felt sick. "You're experimenting on them." "We are studying them," Kelteros corrected. "It is an honor. Their genetic material may help advance the Empire." One council member, a female Zyraxian named Myrlana, spoke quietly. "Perhaps we should return the children as a gesture of goodwill. The humans have been loyal subjects for 7,000 years." Vexthor turned to her with cold eyes. "Subjects do not dictate terms to the Empire. The matter is closed." Jack stepped forward. "If you won't return our children willingly, Earth will have no choice but to consider this an act of war." The council chamber filled with a sound like hissing steam. Jack realized the Zyraxians were laughing. "War?" Vexthor said. "Your species hasn't fought a real war in 7,000 years. You have forgotten how. And even if you remembered, your technology is centuries behind ours." Jack stared at Vexthor, his face grim. "You're wrong about humans. We haven't forgotten anything." Back on his shuttle, Jack sent an encrypted message to Earth. Diplomatic efforts failed. The Zyraxians refuse to return the children and admit they are conducting experiments on them. They believe we are weak and incapable of fighting back. In her office on Earth, President Laura Hayes read Jack's message. She closed her eyes briefly, then pressed a button on her desk. "Admiral Reeves, activate Operation Sleeping Giant. Authorization code Hayes Alpha 73. "Yes, Madam President," came the reply. "God help the Zyraxians. They have no idea what they've awakened. In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, lights began to flash as massive engines powered up for the first time in centuries. The fleet was awakening. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Susan Collins stood in the command center of Earth's secret military base. Around her, officers and crew members rushed to prepare for war. Screens lit up as ships long hidden in underground bases and underwater facilities powered up for the first time in centuries. Status report, Susan said to her second-in-command, Commander Bill Hayes. The fleet will be ready in 24 hours, Admiral. All 700 ships are being brought online. Crews are boarding now. Susan nodded. For 7,000 years, humanity had pretended to accept its place under Xeraxian rule. But in secret, they had been preparing. Each generation of military leaders passed down the knowledge. Each generation of scientists improved the technology. They studied every piece of Xeraxian equipment they could get their hands on. They built ships and weapons that looked simple from the outside, but contained technology the Xeraxians wouldn't expect. And what about the U.S. Defiant? Susan asked. Captain Peter Nichols has the ship ready. They're just waiting for your orders. The U.S. Defiant was humanity's greatest achievement. A stealth ship built with technology reverse-engineered from Xeraxian vessels. It could slip past Imperial sensors undetected. It would be the tip of the spear in their rescue mission. In a different part of the base, Captain Peter Nichols briefed his crew. They stood in a large room, looking at a hologram of a Xeraxian research station. This is where we believe they're keeping the children, Peter said. Our mission is simple. Get in, find the kids, get out. Once we have them safely away, the main fleet will begin its operation. A hand went up. It was Ryan Cooper, the ship's tactical officer. Sir, what if the kids aren't there? Then we find out where they are, Peter said firmly. We don't leave without them. Another voice spoke from the back of the room. And I'm coming with you. Everyone turned to see Lisa Hartman standing in the doorway. She wore a military uniform, though she wasn't part of the armed forces. Mrs. Hartman, this is a military operation, Peter began. My children are on that station, Lisa said. I was a nurse before moving to New Eden. I have medical training, and I know my kids. They'll trust me if they're scared. Peter looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, you're in, but you follow orders exactly. On the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, Peter looked at his crew. They were the best Earth had to offer. The ship was small compared to Xeraxian vessels, but it was fast and had technology the aliens wouldn't expect. Start up the stealth systems, Peter ordered. Prepare for launch. The ship hummed to life around them. Unlike normal human ships, it made almost no sound. The stealth technology didn't just hide them from sensors. It made them truly invisible. In her office, President Hayes spoke with Admiral Collins over a secure line. The Defiant launches in 1 hour, Susan reported. The main fleet will be ready to move soon after. Do we have any response from the Xeraxians yet? Hayes asked. Nothing, Madam President. They received our formal demand for the children's return 6 hours ago. They've ignored it completely. Hayes sighed. Then they leave us no choice. Begin Operation Sleeping Giant. On board the Defiant, Lisa Hartman sat in her small cabin, looking at a picture of her twins. Danny and Kate smiled back at her, their faces frozen in a moment from better days. I'm coming for you, she whispered. Just hold on. The ship shuddered slightly as it rose from its underwater dock. On the bridge, Peter gave the order to engage the stealth systems. The Defiant vanished from all sensors as it broke the surface of the ocean and accelerated toward space. In orbit around Earth, Xeraxian monitoring stations detected nothing unusual. Their sensors showed only normal civilian traffic. The arrogance of 7,000 years of unopposed rule had made them careless. They never thought to look for what shouldn't be there. The U.S. Defiant slipped past them like a ghost and jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading straight for the heart of the Xeraxian Empire. The war had begun, and the enemy didn't even know it yet. In the Grand Crystal Palace on the Xeraxian homeworld, Emperor Zorkalax sat on his floating throne. 7,000 years of rule had made the emperor confident. Some might say too confident. He looked down at the report in his hands with mild interest. "So the humans have made demands," he said, his voice deep and slow. "How amusing." Chief Counselor Vexthor bowed low. "Yes, Your Majesty. They demand the return of the specimens we collected. They even threaten war if we refuse." The emperor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "War? The humans have not fought a real war since we defeated them 7,000 years ago. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. What could they possibly do against the might of our empire?" "Nothing, Your Majesty," Vexthor agreed. "But perhaps we should increase patrols near their worlds, just as a precaution." The emperor waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. "A waste of resources. The humans will complain for a while, then accept their place as they always have." Chief Scientist Kelturos entered the throne room and bowed. "Your Majesty, I bring exciting news about the human specimens." "Speak," the emperor commanded. "We have begun our tests on the human children. Their genetic structure is even more remarkable than we thought. They adapt to changes in their environment at an amazing speed. Their cells can be programmed to resist extreme heat, cold, radiation, almost any condition." The emperor leaned forward, suddenly interested. "Can this ability be transferred to our species?" "That is what we aim to discover," Kelturos said. "If we can extract this ability and give it to our own people, we could colonize worlds previously thought uninhabitable. The empire could expand beyond even its current glory." "How long will your experiments take?" the emperor asked. "Several weeks at least. The process is delicate. We must be careful not to damage the specimens. They are fragile, though their genetic material is strong." From the side of the throne room, Counselor Meyerlana spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may speak." The emperor nodded, though his expression showed little interest in what she might say. "These specimens are children of ascension species. The humans clearly value them. Perhaps we should consider returning them after our initial studies are complete. We could offer compensation, maintain peaceful relations." "Peace," the emperor interrupted. "Peace is merely the condition in which inferiors accept their place beneath us. The humans have accepted this for 7,000 years. They will continue to accept it." "But Your Majesty," Meyerlana persisted, "our scouts report unusual activity in the human military, old bases being reopened, communications increasing between their worlds." Vexthor glared at her, meaningless gestures. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Are we certain of that?" Meyerlana asked. "We have not closely monitored human technological development in over 500 years. We assumed they would follow the typical pattern of subject species, but what if they did not?" The emperor's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting the humans have been deceiving us, Counselor?" "I merely suggest caution, Your Majesty. The historical records show that humans were unusually resourceful during the war 7,000 years ago." "Enough," the emperor said. "Your concern for these primitives is disturbing, Counselor. Perhaps you need time to remember where your loyalties lie. You are removed from the council until further notice." Guards stepped forward and escorted Meyerlana from the throne room. She went without protest, but her eyes showed worry. The emperor turned back to Kelturos. "Continue your work, Chief Scientist. I want results quickly." "Yes, Your Majesty." After the scientist left, the emperor spoke to Vexthor. "As a precaution, activate the outer defense grid. Not because I believe the humans are a threat, but it has been too long since we tested those systems." "At once, Your Majesty." Unknown to the emperor, at that very moment, the human stealth ship U.S. Defiant was passing through the outermost reaches of Imperial space, completely undetected by Xeraxian sensors. The Empire's arrogance would soon be its undoing. The U.S. Defiant slipped through Xeraxian space like a ghost. On the bridge, Captain Peter Nichols watched the star map as they approached their first target. "Status report," he said quietly. "All systems nominal." Captain Ryan Cooper replied from his station. "Stealth systems at 100%. The Xeraxians have no idea we're here." Peter nodded. "Good. How long until we reach the research station?" 18 hours at current speed." In another part of the ship, Lisa Hartman sat in a small room with 5 other crew members. They were the rescue team, training for the mission ahead. Each person had a specific job. Lisa's was to find and care for the children once they were located. "Remember," said the team leader, "we go in fast and quiet. The Xeraxians don't expect us. They don't even think we can reach them." Lisa checked her equipment. She was scared but determined. Somewhere in that research station, her children waited. Meanwhile, far from the Defiant's position, Admiral Susan Collins led the main human fleet toward a Xeraxian outpost. This was not the main mission, but a diversion. While the Defiant rescued the children, Collins would show the Xeraxians that humans were not helpless. "All ships report ready." "Admiral," Commander Hayes said on the bridge of the flagship, U.S. Intrepid. "Good," Susan replied. "Drop out of FTL in 5 minutes." Battle positions. The human fleet consisted of 100 ships. Small compared to the full might of the Xeraxian Empire, but more than enough for this mission. Each ship carried weapons the Xeraxians had never seen before. Technology developed in secret over thousands of years. On the Xeraxian outpost, Commander Dreklar received an alert from the sensor station. "What is it?" he asked, annoyed at being disturbed. "Unknown ships approaching, Commander," a junior officer reported. "They appear to be human vessels." Dreklar laughed. "Human vessels? This far into Imperial space? Impossible." "The sensors are clear, sir. 100 ships, approaching at high speed." "Fine. Power up defenses. Let's teach these humans a lesson about trespassing in our territory." Dreklar was not worried. Human ships were known to be slow and poorly armed. This would be easy. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the Xeraxian outpost's defense perimeter. Susan Collins stood calmly on her bridge. "Open a channel to the outpost," she ordered. The face of Commander Dreklar appeared on the main screen. He looked surprised to see humans this deep in Imperial space. "This is Admiral Susan Collins of Earth Central Command. Your Empire has taken human children from New Eden Colony. We demand their immediate return." Dreklar's expression changed to amusement. "Admiral, you are in violation of Imperial space. Turn your ships around or be destroyed." Susan's face remained calm. "I'll take that as a refusal to cooperate." She cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "Target their main power core. Fire when ready." The U.S. Intrepid fired a single shot, a beam of blue-white energy that the Xeraxians had never seen before. It cut through the outpost's shields like they weren't even there and struck the power core. The entire station went dark. On his command deck, Dreklar stared in shock. How did they penetrate our shields?" Before he could get an answer, the human fleet fired again. Not to destroy the outpost, but to disable it completely. In less than 5 minutes, the battle was over. The Xeraxian outpost, thought to be impregnable, floated powerless in space. Susan opened a channel again. "Commander, your outpost is disabled. Your people are unharmed. This was a demonstration. Tell your Emperor that humanity will no longer be treated as inferior. Return our children, or next time, we won't be so merciful." As the human fleet turned to leave, emergency signals flashed across the Xeraxian Empire. For the first time in 7,000 years, Imperial forces had been defeated in battle. On the Imperial capital, Emperor Zorkalax received the news with rage. Impossible. How could primitive humans defeat an Imperial outpost? "The reports are clear, Your Majesty," Vexthor said, his voice shaking. "Their weapons, they were unlike anything we've seen before." The Emperor stood from his throne. "Launch the battle fleet. Destroy the human colonies. Show them what happens when they challenge the Empire. Across human space, the war had begun. The Xerexian research station hung in space like a giant silver spider. It had 8 long arms extending from a central hub, each arm housing different research labs. Captain Peter Nichols studied the station through the Defiant's advanced sensors. "There," he said, pointing to one of the arms. "Lab Sector 4. That's where they're keeping the children." The rescue team gathered in the ship's launch bay. 6 members, including Lisa Hartman. They wore special suits designed to protect against Xerexian weapons. Each carried a stunner that would temporarily disable a Xerexian without killing them. "Remember," Peter told them, "this is a rescue mission, not an attack. Get in, get the children, get out. We have the element of surprise, but it won't last long." Lisa checked her medical kit one last time. Her heart raced with both fear and hope. Soon she would see her children again. The team boarded a small shuttle. Unlike the main ship, this shuttle was visible to sensors, but by the time the Xerexians detected it, they would already be inside the station. The shuttle detached from the Defiant and flew toward the research station. Inside the station, Chief Scientist Kel Taros watched as his assistants conducted tests on the human children. The children were kept in clear tubes filled with a special liquid that kept them asleep but alive. Wires connected to their bodies monitored their reactions as the scientists adjusted the environment inside the tubes. "Increase radiation levels in Tube 7, Kel Taros ordered. "Let's see how the male child adapts." An assistant adjusted some controls, and the liquid around Danny Hartman glowed slightly. Within minutes, readings showed his cells changing to resist the radiation. "Remarkable," Kel Taros said. "These humans adapt faster than any species we've studied. The Emperor will be pleased." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. "What is that?" Kel Taros demanded. A security officer rushed into the lab. "We've detected a small ship approaching. It appears to be human." "Human? Here? Impossible." Kel Taros couldn't believe what he was hearing. No human ship could have reached this far into Imperial space without being detected. "Secure the specimens," he ordered. "Move them to the backup lab." But before his assistants could comply, the doors to the lab slid open. The human rescue team rushed in, stunners ready. The Xerexian guards fired their energy weapons, but the special suits absorbed the blasts. The humans fired back, and one by one, the Xerexians fell to the ground, temporarily paralyzed. Lisa pushed past the others, looking frantically at the tubes. "Danny, Kate." She cried when she saw her twins floating in the strange liquid. The team leader, Sam Bradley, approached one of the still-conscious Xerexian scientists. "How do we get them out safely?" he demanded, pointing his stunner at the alien's head. The scientist hesitated, then pointed to a control panel. "That will drain the tubes and wake them. But be careful. The transition can be dangerous." Sam began working the controls while Lisa moved from tube to tube, checking on each child. All 12 from New Eden were there, alive but asleep. As the liquid drained from the tubes, Lisa noticed something strange. There were more tubes in the back of the lab. She walked closer and gasped. More children. Dozens of them. Some looked like they had been there for years. "Sam," she called. "There are more children here. Not just from New Eden." Sam joined her, his face grim. They'd been doing this for a long time. Taking our children in small numbers so we wouldn't notice. As the team worked to free all the children, one member accessed the lab's computer. He downloaded everything he could find. Research data, logs, plans, evidence of what the Xerexians had been doing. The New Eden children began to wake up. Lisa held Danny and Kate in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Mom," Kate said weakly, "where are we?" "It's okay, baby. We're going home now." The team hurried to move all the children to the shuttle. There were nearly 50 in total, ranging in age from 6 to 16 years old. Some had clearly been in the lab for years, their growth stunted by the tubes. As they left, Sam placed small devices around the lab. Not bombs, but data transmitters. They would broadcast what had happened here to every corner of human space and to the Xeraxian Empire itself. The truth would finally be known. The data from the Xeraxian research station spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every human world received the transmission. So did many Xeraxian planets. The evidence was clear and shocking. For centuries, the Empire had been secretly taking human children to study their genetic adaptability. On the Imperial capital, ordinary Xeraxian citizens watched the videos with growing horror. They saw human children floating in tubes. They read the scientists' cold reports about experiments performed on them. They learned that their leaders had been lying to them for thousands of years. Councillor Myrlana, who had been removed from the High Council for suggesting caution, now stood before a crowd of her people. "The Emperor has betrayed not only the humans but us as well," she said, her voice strong and clear. "This is not the Empire we believe in. We have always thought ourselves superior, but these actions prove we have lost our way." All across the Xeraxian worlds, people began to question their leaders. Some took to the streets in protest. Others contacted humans they knew, asking if the reports were true. The empire that had stood unquestioned for millennia was beginning to crack from within. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zorkilax raged at his advisors. How did this happen? How did they broadcast this across our entire empire? Vexthor could only shake his head. The humans used our own communication network against us. They planted devices in the research station that hacked into our systems. Shut it down. Stop the broadcasts. We're trying, Your Majesty, but they've spread too far. And there are protests in the capital. The people are demanding answers. The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. Send in the army. Crush any dissent, and launch everything we have against Earth. They must be punished for this. Meanwhile, the U.S. Defiant raced back toward human space with its precious cargo. The rescued children were being cared for in the ship's medical bay. Many were still weak from their time in the tubes. Some of the older ones had been captives for years and barely remembered their homes. Lisa Hartman worked tirelessly, using her nursing skills to help them. Her own twins were recovering well, but other children needed more care. Captain Peter Nichols received a transmission from Admiral Collins. Her face looked tired but determined on the screen. "Good work, Captain. The children you rescued are now the face of this war. Every human in the galaxy has seen what the Xeraxians did to them. Our people are united as never before." "What's our next move, Admiral?" Peter asked. "The Xeraxians have attacked 2 of our colony worlds in retaliation. We're evacuating our people from the border regions, but we're not just playing defense anymore. The President has authorized the use of NOVA." Peter's eyes widened. NOVA was humanity's most secret weapon, a device that could disrupt the neural patterns of Xeraxian brains, causing temporary paralysis without harming humans or other species. It had been developed over centuries but never used before. "Is that wise, Admiral? If we use NOVA, there's no going back." "This isn't about going back anymore, Peter. It's about going forward. The Xeraxians need to understand that humanity won't be their lab rats ever again." On Earth, President Hayes addressed the United Human Worlds. Her message was broadcast to every colony, every ship, every station. "For 7,000 years, we have lived under Xeraxian rule. We accepted their peace treaty because we believed it would protect our children, our future. Now we know the truth. While we thought we were at peace, they were stealing our children for experiments." She paused, her eyes reflecting both sadness and determination. "Today, we say no more. Humanity will never again bow to those who would harm our children. We fight not just for revenge, but for a new galaxy where all species are treated with respect." Across human space, military ships moved into position. The NOVA devices were loaded and armed. After 7,000 years of secret preparation, humanity was ready to show its true strength. And they were not fighting alone anymore. Myrlana, and her growing movement of Xerexian rebels had made contact with Earth. The Empire was facing enemies both outside and in. The imperial capital world of Xerax glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space. For thousands of years, it had been the center of power for the largest empire the galaxy had ever known. Now it was surrounded by ships, both human vessels and Xerexian rebel ships that had defected to Myrlana's cause. Admiral Susan Collins stood on the bridge of the U.S. Intrepid, looking at the tactical display. The combined fleet was impressive, but the Imperial defenses were still formidable. "Status of the NOVA devices?" she asked. "Ready to deploy, Admiral," Commander Hayes replied. "Once activated, they'll disrupt Xeraxian neural patterns within the target area for approximately 6 hours. Enough time for our ground teams to move in." Susan nodded. "And the rebel forces?" Counselor Myrlana reports that 30% of the Imperial fleet has joined her. They're in position and awaiting our signal. Inside the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zorkilax gathered his loyal commanders. His once mighty empire was crumbling around him, but he refused to accept defeat. "These humans think they can challenge us. After 7,000 years of submission, we will crush them and remind the galaxy why we rule." Chief Counselor Vexthor looked less confident. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have shown unexpected strength, and with the rebels joining them." "Silence," the Emperor shouted. "There will be no negotiations. We are the Xeraxian Empire. We do not compromise." Outside the palace walls, the streets were filled with protesters, regular citizens, inspired by Myrlana's words and horrified by the evidence of human children being used for experiments, demanded change. Imperial guards tried to maintain order, but they were overwhelmed by the numbers. The battle began with a flash of light that no one could see. The NOVA devices activated, sending invisible waves across the capital. Xerexian soldiers suddenly found themselves unable to move, their neural patterns disrupted by the human technology. The Imperial defense systems, requiring Xeraxian operators, went offline. Human and rebel ships moved in, landing troops at strategic locations. There was some resistance from unaffected guards, but it was minimal. Within hours, the rebels and humans had control of most of the capital. At the Imperial Palace, a small group led by Captain Peter Nichols and Counselor Myrlana approached the throne room. With them was Lisa Hartman. She had insisted on being there, to face the Emperor who had ordered her children taken. The doors to the throne room opened. Emperor Zorkilax sat on his floating throne, affected by the NOVA device but still conscious. His eyes burned with hatred as the humans and rebel Xeraxians entered. "So this is how 7,000 years of empire ends," he said, his voice weak but still proud. Myrlana stepped forward. "It does not have to end, Your Majesty. It can transform. We can build something better. An alliance of equals, not an empire of masters and subjects. You would betray your own kind for these humans." The Emperor spat. Lisa walked forward, standing tall despite being half the Emperor's height. "We are not the ones who betrayed anyone. You took our children. You experimented on them. You broke the peace, not us." Peter placed a hand on the Emperor's throne. "You have two choices: surrender and help establish a new order, or face trial for your crimes against humanity and other species. The Empire as you knew it is over either way." 2 days later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Grand Council chamber. Humans sat beside Xeraxians and delegates from a dozen other species that had lived under Imperial rule. President Hayes and Counselor Myrlana stood together at the center. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," Hayes said. "The Galactic Council will replace the Empire. All species will have equal voice and equal rights. No more masters, no more subjects." Myrlana nodded. "For too long, we Xeraxians believed our technological advancement made us superior. We forgot that true civilization is measured by how we treat others, not by our power over them." Among the witnesses to this historic moment were the rescued children, including Danny and Kate Hartman. They sat with their mother, watching as the galaxy transformed. The twins, who had once been seen merely as research specimens, were now symbols of change. "What happens now, Mom?" Kate asked, holding her mother's hand. Lisa smiled. "Now we build something new together, something better." As the delegates signed the new charter, a thought passed through many minds, both human and Xeraxian. The 7,000 years of false peace had ended, but perhaps true peace could now begin.